Did Bria Hartley just end Sophie Cunningham's season on purpose and then laugh about it? That's the shocking question rattling the WNBA this week. Cameras caught Sophie Cunningham crumpled on the floor, clutching her knee. The silence of the arena heavy with concern. But it wasn't the injury alone that lit social media on fire. It was Bria Hartley's expression seconds later. Viewers insist they saw a grin, a smirk, a flash of satisfaction as trainers rushed to Sophie's aid. That single freeze frame, Hartley glancing back with what appeared to be a sinister smile, became the defining image of the night. It spread across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram within hours, replayed endlessly as evidence that this was more than just accidental contact. Fans weren't just replaying the collision. They were dissecting her face, pausing the tape, zooming in, and insisting it told the entire story. To them, it wasn't bad luck, it was intent. And in the world of professional sports, intent is everything. The moment instantly transformed Hartley from a role player into the league's most talked about villain. But was the smile real? Or just a misinterpreted snapshot in a heated game? That debate continues to rage, but one thing is certain, Bria Hartley's smirk has become the most infamous image of the WNBA season. If this had been Bria Hartley's first controversial moment, perhaps the benefit of the doubt would still be on her side. But in sports, history matters, and Hartley's record is not spotless. Over the past few seasons, she's built a reputation as one of the league's most physical, sometimes reckless competitors. Fans recall multiple ejections, heated confrontations, and even the now infamous clash with Angel Reese that escalated into a hair-pulling altercation. Those incidents didn't fade quietly, they stayed in the public's memory, resurfacing whenever Hartley found herself at the center of another storm. So when Sophie Cunningham collapsed with a torn MCL and Hartley was caught smirking seconds later, the past came roaring back. To critics, this wasn't an isolated accident. It was part of a larger, troubling pattern. On social media, fans began compiling highlight reels of Hartley's most controversial plays, overlaying captions that branded her the dirtiest player in the WNBA. Clips of shoves, takedowns, and unnecessary collisions were stitched together as supposed proof that her style of play crosses the line from competitive to dangerous. In professional basketball, aggressiveness is expected, but when physicality repeatedly leads to injury or eruptions on the court, the conversation shifts. Hartley, fairly or not, has become the face of that conversation, and in the wake of Cunningham's injury, the court of public opinion has ruled quickly. Her reputation for chaos has finally caught up with her. If the smirk was the spark, social media was the gasoline. Within minutes of Sophie Cunningham's collapse, the replay clips of Bria Hartley looking back with that grin were circulating across every platform imaginable. Fans paused the frame, zoomed in on her expression, and reposted it with captions accusing her of celebrating an injury. What could have been debated as a misunderstood facial expression became, in the digital age, a viral symbol of malice. But it didn't stop there. Internet detectives began digging into Hartley's online activity, and what they found made things worse. Screenshots surfaced showing Hartley liking posts that branded her the dirtiest player in the league. One fan account even mocked her as being always at the scene of the crime, and right beneath it there it was Hartley's like, whether she meant it as sarcasm, self-awareness, or simple carelessness, the damage was done. To fans already angry about Sophie's injury, it looked like Hartley was not only guilty, but proud of it. That perception spread faster than any official statement, cementing her as the villain of the week. In today's sports world, perception often carries more weight than fact, and Hartley's online trail became the court evidence that fans needed to convict her in the arena of public opinion. With one smirk and one careless tap of a like button, she went from controversial to indefensible in the eyes of many. In the hours after Sophie Cunningham was ruled out for the season with a torn MCL, it wasn't the league office or the referees who sounded the loudest alarm, it was Sophie's own family. And when family speaks, people listen. Her sister, Lindsay Cunningham, took to social media with a blistering post that cut deeper than any fan outrage could. She didn't just call out Hartley, she called out the league itself. Maybe you should focus less on fining players for commenting on your poor officiating and more on hiring referees who can protect your athletes, Lindsay wrote. Pathetic. Those words resonated because they weren't just emotional, they were factual. Sophie herself had already been fined earlier in the season for daring to criticize officiating on her podcast, punished for speaking her truth. Yet here she was, seriously injured, in a game where many argued the officials failed to act decisively. Her sister's words struck a nerve, framing the league as upside down in its priorities, silencing players who speak out while letting dangerous moments go unchecked. Then came Sophie's mother, Paula Cunningham, who added fuel to the fire with a now deleted post calling Hartley plain mean and out of control. Though deleted, screenshots spread like wildfire, showing a family unwilling to stay silent. These weren't just frustrated fans venting online. This was blood family members watching one of their own go down and demanding justice when no one else would. Their outrage forced the story out of the realm of speculation and into the mainstream, putting public pressure on the WNBA to answer a painful question: why did Sophie's protection fall to her family instead of the referees in the league sworn to safeguard its players? This wasn't just about Bria Hartley and Sophie Cunningham anymore. This was about trust in the officials, or rather, the lack of it. For weeks leading up to this game, players and coaches had voiced growing frustrations about inconsistent officiating across the WNBA. Calls that came too late, calls that never came at all, and a sense that referees were letting dangerous levels of physicality slip through the cracks. Sophie Cunningham's injury became the breaking point, the perfect storm of perception and reality colliding. Fans didn't just see Sophie writhing in pain, they saw referees who hesitated, who failed to immediately stop play, and who seemed once again unable to enforce a consistent standard of safety. And when Sophie's sister publicly blasted the league for silencing criticism instead of fixing the root issue, she put her finger on what so many players had already felt but couldn't say without risking fines. Officiating wasn't just inconsistent, it was unsafe. The outrage spread because this wasn't an isolated incident. This was the latest in a string of moments where players felt vulnerable, left exposed by referees who were either unwilling or unprepared to take control of the game. For fans, it painted a bleak picture. The WNBA talks about protecting its athletes, but in practice, those words ring hollow. And now, with a star like Cunningham sidelined, the league's officiating woes aren't just a behind-the-scenes issue, they're front-page news, threatening the credibility of the season itself. As the firestorm grew, attention shifted away from the court and zeroed in on the offices of league leadership. Fans, analysts, and even players wanted answers. Where was Commissioner Kathy Engelbert? Where was the league's statement on player protection? The silence spoke volumes. Sophie Cunningham's family had already done what the referees failed to do, demand accountability. Now the spotlight was on the WNBA itself, and critics were asking hard questions. How can a league that fines players for speaking out about officiating turn around and do nothing when officiating appears to fail in preventing injury? It created a perception of hypocrisy, of misplaced priorities, and fans weren't shy about calling it out. The demands weren't just for Bria Hartley's suspension, they were for systemic change. Clearer safety protocols, harsher penalties for repeat offenders, stronger accountability when referees miss obvious moments that put athletes at risk. This wasn't just a PR crisis, it was a leadership crisis. The very credibility of the league's ability to protect its players was at stake, and in an era where every second is recorded, shared, and debated online, Engelbert and her team couldn't afford to drag their feet. The question became urgent. Would the WNBA finally step up and enforce real accountability? Or would this incident go down as just another example of leadership looking the other way until the outrage faded? For the fans and for Sophie Cunningham's family, the answer could define the future of player safety across the league. What happened on the court after Sophie Cunningham's injury could have easily spiraled into a disaster for Indiana. They were already shorthanded without Caitlin Clark, and losing Sophie, one of their toughest competitors, looked like the nail in the coffin. By halftime, the Fever trailed by 21 points. Broadcasters were already framing the night around survival, not victory. The fans in the arena braced themselves for a blowout. But what unfolded in the second half was nothing short of remarkable, a reminder that basketball isn't just about talent, it's about resilience. Kelsey Mitchell exploded, scoring 34 of her 38 points in the second half. Every bucket she hit chipped away at the deficit and sent a jolt of belief through her teammates. Odyssey Sims steadied the offense, slowed the pace when needed, and became the calming voice on the floor that prevented frustration from boiling over. And Aaliyah Boston dominated the paint, pulling down rebounds, securing second-chance opportunities, and anchoring the defense. Possession by possession, Indiana clawed back, fueled by grit and sheer determination. By the final buzzer, they had turned a hopeless night into the largest comeback in franchise history, a 99-93 win. The same night that threatened to break the team instead became a defining moment of their character. Fans didn't just walk away remembering Sophie's injury or Hartley's smirk, they left talking about the heart of a team that refused to fold even when everything was stacked against them. In the darkest moment of their season, Indiana reminded everyone why you never count them out. As the outrage spread like wildfire, Bria Hartley seemed to vanish. Fans noticed her once active social media accounts suddenly went private, and in some cases, disappeared altogether. For an athlete in the public eye, retreating from the spotlight in this way only added fuel to the fire. Was she hiding? Was she trying to escape the backlash? Or was this the prelude to something bigger like an impending suspension? The timing was impossible to ignore. Just as Sophie Cunningham was officially ruled out for the season with a torn MCL, Hartley shut down her digital presence. In the world of professional sports, silence often speaks louder than words. and Hartley's silence screamed of damage control. Online forums lit up with speculation. Had the league already informed her of a pending punishment? Was she about to quit under the weight of public pressure? Or was she simply overwhelmed by the torrent of hate messages flooding her inbox? Regardless of the reason, her disappearance left a vacuum that fans quickly filled with their own conclusions, none of them flattering. Hartley, who had once relished the competitive spotlight, now seemed to be running from it. And in doing so, she only deepened the perception that she had something to hide. Whether she was guilty of intent or just guilty of poor judgment, one fact was clear. The court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. Hartley was the villain, and disappearing from social media only made her look more like she knew it. While Bria Hartley was retreating into silence, Sophie Cunningham chose the opposite path. Despite being sidelined with a torn MCL, she made her voice heard, and it was as defiant as it was surprising. First, she took to social media with a blunt, fiery post, "F around and find out." It was short, sharp, and instantly viral. Fans interpreted it as a shot at Hartley, at the critics, and even at the league itself. It was Sophie's way of saying she might be injured, but she wasn't broken, and neither was her team. But just when the outrage seemed certain to bury Hartley for good, Sophie added a twist no one expected. On her podcast, she openly defended Hartley. Cunningham told listeners she didn't believe Bria meant to injure her, calling it a basketball play gone wrong. She even emphasized that the two were friends, that she had nothing but love for her opponent, and that Hartley would never deliberately try to hurt her. The statement shocked many fans who had already branded Hartley guilty beyond doubt. For Sophie, though, it wasn't about excusing the pain, it was about taking control of the narrative. By offering forgiveness, she separated herself from the chorus of outrage and reminded everyone that she, not social media, was the one living through the injury. It was a masterclass in leadership, defiant enough to silence critics, yet gracious enough to defend a friend. In that moment, Sophie showed she wasn't just a star on the court, she was becoming a voice bigger than the game itself. At the end of the day, this saga wasn't just about Bria Hartley's smirk or Sophie Cunningham's torn MCL, it was about something much larger. It was about a league wrestling with its identity, its leadership, and its responsibility to protect players. Fans walked away divided. Was this a freak accident blown out of proportion? Or was it the latest proof that the WNBA has a culture problem when it comes to officiating and accountability? Hartley's reputation, her online missteps, and her retreat from the spotlight painted her as a villain. Sophie's injury, her family's outrage, and her own defiant response painted her as both a victim and a leader. And the Indiana Fever's 21-point comeback added yet another layer, showing that resilience can rise out of chaos. But beyond the drama, one question remains. Will the WNBA take this moment seriously enough to change? Because this isn't just about one game. It's about the credibility of officiating, the protection of its stars, and the trust of its fans. In an era where every misstep is captured on camera and dissected online, the margin for error is gone. Bria Hartley may or may not face suspension. Sophie Cunningham will spend months in recovery. But the league itself? It stands at a crossroads. Will it continue down a path of reaction and inconsistency, or will it finally prove it can lead, protect, and uphold the values it claims to stand for? That, more than any single play, may be the true legacy of this controversial night.